Oh, I'm very sorry about that, you guys. So I actually I went live a minute ago, and apparently the dogs had something to say about that, so I had to go get them wrangled. Anybody else got pets that are always up to something? Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm from Southern California, and for the last 14 years, I've helped people put together kitchens, baths, outdoor kitchens, and various other home renovation projects. And I want to dive into today the top 5 mistakes that I have seen over the last 14 years. These seem to be repeat mistakes. People seem to do these things a lot. And I want to address them one by one. And let me know in the comments below, have you gone through a remodel before? Have you made a mistake, something you wish you wouldn't have done? It can be specific or just general category. These things are going to be specifically non-specific. These things are going to be very broad category. But I'm going to give some very realistic examples of times I've encountered these mistakes. So we're going to start off with number 5, and we're going to do a countdown. So number 5 is unrealistic expectations, especially when it comes to budget. So unrealistic expectations, it's awesome when someone walks into the showroom and they're like, I'll take one of those and 2 of those and 3 of those, and I'll put it all on my black Amex card. I'm not even going to look at the price. It doesn't happen every day, but it's cool when it does. And then the opposite end of the spectrum, again, it doesn't happen every day, but sometimes people will come in and say, Dave, I just need the cheapest thing you got. It just needs to fit in that hole and fill that need. And I'm moving next week. I don't care what it looks like. That doesn't happen very often either. Usually folks find themselves somewhere in the middle. And in the middle is where you're trying to be smart with your money, but you're also trying not to make a dumb choice. And that's kind of where everybody is. Nobody wants to shoot themselves in the foot. I heard somebody the other day, it was actually on the host of Fixer Upper. So let me tell you something about home remodeling shows in general. They tend to either be oversimplified, or they tend to put out somewhat false information. For example, I was watching Fixer Upper the other day. It happened to be on where I was, and so I kind of stopped and watched it. And the host told the homeowner, yeah, you can get all nice new appliances for $2,000 in this kitchen. And I'm like, $2,000? That barely covers the cost of a decent refrigerator, something that's meant to preserve the food, which I'll have an episode here shortly about how to pick the right refrigerator. So, yeah, that's false information. I've heard another show, which I do like the show, but Property Brothers, they also set out some false expectations, because they'll tell people, oh yeah, you can do this whole thing for like $10,000. That's including construction and materials and everything else. And I'm like, that's not a $10,000 project, and yeah, it's easy for these home remodeling shows to throw out a false number, a low number, a number that seems achievable, that makes people want to watch. But the reality is, yeah, it's easy to hit that number when you, the host, are the general contractor. It's easy to hit that number, and you're being paid by the network. It's easy to hit that number when I watch you carry that Kohler box in front of the camera, and that Whirlpool appliance box in front of the camera, and you see them unloading the truck, and I'm like, okay, yeah, so Kohler paid for some camera time, Whirlpool paid for some camera time. I get it. I understand how these things work. I wasn't born yesterday. So, it costs money to have your logo as a business in front of the camera. I get it. But now people are at home watching, thinking they can recreate that for $10,000. It's not true. It's just not. So, not so the first thing you need to do is, if you're watching these home remodel shows, use them as an inspiration point, sure, but do not set your budget based on the budgets that are in the shows, because they're highly deflated. So mistake number 4. Mistake number 4 is, what we have here is a failure to communicate. Uh, when husbands and wives come into the showroom, I hear them say all the time that the husband will have one idea, the wife will have another, and sometimes I have to play a referee and separate the two, and it's. And sometimes I just have to look at them and say, you guys got to figure this out. You guys got to discuss it. And, now 9 times out of 10, it's true. The standard husband answer is, whatever you want, hun. That's, I think, 8 or 9 out of 10 husbands will probably give you that answer. And that's the truth. But sometimes people just get stuck on things, and they just can't see things from the other's point of view. For example, lots of husbands will say, what do I need a hand shower in my shower for? In my shower, I don't have I have a hand shower. I don't use it. I use just a regular shower head. My wife is the one that uses the hand shower. And this is what I tell them. I say, my wife is the one that uses the hand shower in my house, not me. But it's useful for washing off children, washing off dogs, washing out the shower, and in general, personal hygiene, because, ladies shave things and stuff like that. So communicating with your partner in your project is hugely important as well. And so going in with a clear mind of what you guys want, and having discussed it beforehand, at least maybe not making selections, but definitely picking styles and picking functions ahead of time, can help for a more successful remodel as well. Which kind of ties right into mistake number 3. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. I can't tell you how often, especially lately, I don't get it. I have had this conversation multiple times over the last few months, I think, and certainly hundreds of times over the last 14 years. But people will come into the showroom and they will say something like, I need to pick up a faucet. I need to pick up a shower system. I need to pick up this custom thing. And I'm like, okay, well, let's talk about features and benefits and stuff. It's like, oh, that's all well and good. I need it today. Like, well, when are you starting your project? Last week. You started the project last week? Well, what were you, I want to ask them what I want to ask them. It's a rude question, but what I want to ask them is, what were you planning on putting in there? Line your stuff up ahead of time. Give yourself time. The biggest letdown for me, and certainly for clients, is going to be the biggest letdown for people, I think, is when they are forced to settle for something they didn't really want in the first place just because it's in stock. Give yourself time. Plan ahead. Don't wait until the guys rip out your bathroom and then go, oh, we need a shower. That's not how this works. That's never been how it worked. If you want just a standard cheap chrome basic shower, yeah, that's probably in stock, and we can get you that, same day, next day, that kind of thing. That's not a big deal. But if you're wanting a designer finish, a matte black, a luxe gold, some sort of a satin brass or a oil rub bronze, or even sometimes brushed nickel needs to be ordered. Give yourself a week or two. Line your products up ahead of time as far as the faucets and shower systems and things like that. I have a huge warehouse and a huge showroom, and I have lots of stuff in stock, but I don't always have everything. The stuff I stock tends to be things like rough valves, the parts that go in the shower behind the wall. So, and I explain this to people, and they kind of look at me like, you mean this designer thing that I wanted isn't in stock? Like, no, but not here, but it can be ordered. We can even have it in, 2 or 3 business days. It's not a big deal. And they're like, it is, because the guy's at my house asking for it right now. I'm like, well, what he's asking you for probably is the rough valves. Those are the parts that he needs right away. But I've had some people, like, they had to settle for something they didn't really want just because it was in stock. And I know that's not a remodel I would want my name on, is something somebody's not happy with. And I doubt there's anybody out there in the world that would want something that is subpar in their home. So anyhow, that is point number 3. Point number 2, which ties kind of nicely into point number 3 about settling, is spending dollars to save dimes. And I see this happen all the time. People shooting themselves in the foot just because they're trying to save $1. Let me tell you a story. I had a guy, this was maybe 8 or 9 years ago, I think, and we had priced out some Roburn medicine cabinets for his house. And he was a nice guy, and I was trying to be good to him. I was trying to get him some good pricing and everything, and I did. He came back to me. He's like, Dave, I need to buy like 6 of these medicine cabinets for my house. And I just can't see myself spending $800 per medicine cabinet. And I'm like, that's cool. No judgment here. Let me see what I can do. And so I found him a knockoff of a Roburn. Now, Roburn, for those of you who don't know, is an American made. They're made in, I want to say, Pennsylvania, and it's a high quality medicine cabinet. And so I did some research, and I found one that was similar specs, similar materials. The company was even founded by a former Roburn employee. So I thought, hey, maybe we can do something here. And this particular medicine cabinet came in at like $450 for what seemed like the exact same thing. And I was, 8 years younger than I am now and less experienced, and I thought I was doing the guy a favor. So I got him these medicine cabinets. He's like, Dave, great. Thanks for helping me save money on these medicine cabinets. That's awesome. And we get to the end of the project, and everything's looking good and everything. And he called me up. He's like, I don't know. The finish isn't quite the same. It's just not as good as the Roburn. He said, Dave, I'm not mad at you because you did what I asked you to, but I honestly wish I had just spent an extra couple $100 on the Roburn medicine cabinets. And that happens a lot. I get a lot of people that nobody in 14 years has ever come to me at the end of a project and said, hey, I'm sorry that I spent the extra $100. I'm sorry I spent the extra $1,000. When you're spending, 20, 30, 40,000 on a full-blown remodel, or even more on a custom build. And nobody's ever come to me and said, oh, I wish I hadn't spent that extra $200, $300, $500. Never once has it happened in 14 years. I have had people come to me a lot, whether I was the one that helped them or I came in later and tried to help them finish up because the first guy screwed up royally, whatever. I've had people come from other home remodeling centers because they just got sick of dealing with that one, and they found me. And they're like, Dave, I honestly, I wish I had spent the money. I wish I had, because the $500 on the remodel wasn't gonna make or break me, but I'm just not happy with what I picked. I'm like, well, sorry. I mean, so and I have this very honest conversation with that come through showroom. It's like, I'm not saying $300 is a low amount of money for a lot of people. A lot of people would be like, $500. That's a chunk, but the reality is, when you look at the whole picture, and you can stop to consider that this is something you have to live with the decisions for the next 20 years. Do what feels right. Do what you like. Don't save money just to save money. Save money if it makes you happy. Does that make sense? So, but yeah, that leads us to tip number 1, which is, wow, this list went through really quick. The mistake number 1 that I see so many people do is not listening to me. Or that's a little egotistical. Okay, not listening to the trade professionals who genuinely have your best interest at heart. And being able to tell who has your best interests at heart versus people who are self-serving. So, for example, I had a guy who custom ordered a cast iron bathtub and gave it to the contractor to put in. And he came back and he told me that his contractor said the upstairs, it was too heavy, that it would fall through the upstairs ceiling. And I said, wait, hold on. You're telling me the contractor says that tub is too heavy for to put on the second floor? And he actually, I said, well, okay, we can return it. There's a 25% restocking fee. They're going to charge us that when they ship it back. And that's standard, knowing this is another, quick side tip here. If you order something and then you cancel or change your mind, every place I've ever worked, every remodeling center, everything, every vendor charges a restocking fee, and it's usually around 25%. And that's just reality. So it does cost money to change your mind. So the thing about the cast iron tub is, he said to me, he says, this tub's too heavy. My contractor says it can't go on the second floor. I'm like, do you know how many buildings have a cast iron tub on the second floor? I said, if your house is that flimsy, you need to burn it down and start over. And I said this to him, to his face. I said, well, the reality is, because he was arguing about the 25% restocking fee. I said, the reality is, this contractor doesn't want to put it upstairs. He doesn't want to lift it. He doesn't want to go through the effort. He doesn't want to hire an extra guy or two to help him. I don't know. But for some reason, and it turns out it wasn't a contractor, it was a handyman. And I said, okay, so your handyman just doesn't want to carry it upstairs. That's the reality. I said, I looked at him. I said, look, and he continued to try and push the point, but I could tell he was kind of wavering a little bit. I said, let's do the math. This is a 300-pound tub. Let's just say for sake of argument, that it is a 400-pound tub when it's full of water. And let's say that you got a person in there. That's another 200 pounds. That's 600 pounds. So, oh, no. I'm renting this house to Samoans. They're big people. Like, okay, let's double that. Let's add another 400. So we got 400, 400, 800. Okay, I am about 200 pounds. 800, that's 4 of me. Are you telling me that if me and 3 of my friends were standing on the second floor of your house, we would fall through? And he stopped for a minute. He kind of looked down. He looked up. He looked to the side. He looked back at me and he said, all right, my wife is the one that doesn't want the tub. I was like, okay, at least you're being honest. So, listen, my wife wants this or that or the other. I'm like, that's fine, that's cool. We'll work with that, but don't try and say that the upstairs, the putting a cast iron tub upstairs is too heavy. That's just ludicrous. Also, I had a lady. This was a long time ago, 10 years ago. She bought some super high-end roll faucets, and these were faucets that she knew they were the quality because I showed her what the quality was, and I showed them against a lot of other brands, and she's like, I like the quality of these. I'm going to get these. And, Roll, a lot of their stuff is imported from England or Italy for the most part. And she got these roll faucets. The plumber said, oh, I didn't pick these out, so I'm not going to put these in. You need to take these back and get something that I sell you or I recommend for you. But this lady, she knew. She avoided mistake number 1. She was able to tell that he was being self-serving and that he did not have her best interests at heart. And so she looked right at the contractor who hired the plumber and said, he's fired, get him out. You either get somebody in here who can do the work or I will. No big deal. And you should have seen how quickly the plumber took back everything he said. No big deal. And you should have seen how quickly the plumber took back everything he said. No, I didn't say I wouldn't do the work. I didn't say I couldn't do the work. She knew. She knew what was going on. And she knew she had purchased quality materials because I had shown her all the different kinds of materials, even some of the brands the plumber was recommending. And she knew that I was being genuine and he was not. So she was able to tell who had best interests at heart. So anyway, hope you guys had fun. I don't see any questions in the chat, and that's okay. I'm sure I'll get some comments on the replay. If you have any other questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments below. And the question of the day is, what is a mistake that you have made? What have you done or wish you had done in your house? Or have you heard of people making a similar mistake? Let me know. All right. I will catch you in the next one.